Tomorrow, the ANC Integrity Committee is due to release its report into Cyril Ramaphosa regarding, yes, Phala Phala. This time last week, the president was rumoured to be about to resign over the Parliamentary panel report, which found there may be a prima facie case for him to answer. Well, however, he's now taking that report on review. The ANC NEC is backing him. Next Tuesday in Parliament, as Aisha mentioned, the party is going to vote against taking the next step towards an impeachment process, due largely because of that review the president has launched. Let's speak now to political analyst and host of On the Spot here on ENCA, Lukhona Mnguni. Lukhona, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, there are so many moving parts to what's going on with Phala Phala, as we've just heard from Aisha. It is interesting, though, that the ANC has thrown their weight behind the president even before this final integrity report is out. What are you expecting tomorrow when it's released? Is it possible to even guess?
I think the first thing that we must note, Sally, and good evening to our viewers, by the way, how rude of me to barge in. I think the first thing we must note is just how the ANC doesn't seem to have control of the moving pieces, because you would have had reports coming out of the special NEC meeting that took place, when was it, on Monday? That some people were saying, no, let's not ask the president to resign, let's allow this thing to be resolved by conference. And there was no indication that there'd be another special NEC meeting before the conference. But they ought to have had some form of timetable that the Integrity Commission would want to publish certain reports. And I am told that it will be a report on the president and a report on the presidential hopeful, Dr. Zweli Mkhize. But let's focus on the president. The preliminary report that was tabled at the last ordinary NEC meeting in November did speak to the issue that the Phala Phala matter is beginning to bring the ANC into disrepute. At the time, they did not ascribe any responsibility to somebody in terms of who is responsible. Is it Arthur Fraser? Is it the president? Is it those who are campaigning against the president using the Phala Phala issue? But if tomorrow is a final report, they will have to form a sense of taking responsibility. And the way in which the president has conducted himself, in his interactions with the Integrity Commission, there were reports, I'm sure you might remember, our viewers might remember, where it was said the president went in with his lawyers. Now, the Integrity Commission is not meant to be a disciplinary committee. It doesn't require you to come with your lawyers. It's meant to be an interaction with a body that is tasked with safeguarding the integrity of the ANC. It's about you and your conscience and what you did, and you answering as faithfully as possible. So if we take the preliminary report, I don't see how it will then say the Phala Phala saga is not a problem for the image of things. It is. What we will be looking out for tomorrow, will they apportion blame on the president and say how you've conducted yourself and how you are continuously conducting yourself on this Phala Phala thing is beginning to bring the ANC into disrepute, because as the president, the standard of moral accountability should be far higher than ordinary members of the ANC.
Can we presume that he would, in that unburdening process, have taken that commission, that integrity committee, fully into his confidence, and that some of the holes that have been identified perhaps have been answered? Could that account, perhaps, if we see a favourable, if it's moving in favour of the president?
I mean, it would be difficult to say he took them into his confidence, because he went there with his lawyers. The lawyers were asked to recuse themselves, and he refused for the lawyers to recuse themselves.
Okay.
So it already tells you that he went there with the view that he must be aided, not to incriminate himself, so that he can be advised by his lawyers. Doesn't bode well of, and of course, the president never addressed the ANC on the matter until he knew that the Integrity Commission was going to table the preliminary report on Phala Phala.
The Integrity Commission, it doesn't have teeth, is my understanding, but it can recommend that someone should step aside.
So it can recommend that you step aside, but what has now been built into the Integrity Commission is that there's now an appeal process. You'll remember when there was the matter of current Deputy Minister of Finance, Dr. David Masondo, when he was asked to step aside, he was not charged, and he said he wants to appeal, and at the time there wasn't an appeal mechanism. So the Integrity Commission has now built in an appeal mechanism. So the president then could then simply say, well, if you're saying I must step aside, I will appeal, but that could the outcome of that Integrity Commission report could really politically weaken the president if it is unfavorable to him. If it's favorable to him, it strengthens him, it affirms the position of the NEC to protect him when it comes to the vote you are talking about on Tuesday against an impeachment committee process. But if it taints him, it might embolden others, not him.
And couldn't it also change the decision of the ANC going into that debate and vote next Tuesday?
Well, look, it does seem as though the NEC itself, this current NEC, in its configuration is stacked up with people who are fairly sympathetic to the president. So for lack of saving face, they might want to continue with the position on Tuesday. But if the Integrity Commission were to say, no, the president in actual fact is not handling this matter well, he's threatening the image of the ANC, those who are the president's detractors, what they could feel is that in actual fact, Tuesday is how many days before conference? 3 days before conference. The president is weak. So there could be another challenge mounted against him seriously at conference. So we can defy the position of an outgoing NEC anyway, because this outgoing NEC would not have the powers to discipline us. There will be a completely different NEC, and they'll have to look at the nominations list, the top 200 that was released by the Electoral Committee, and say, of these 200, in terms of favorability, where do we stand? Would we be protected by the incoming NEC, or would they seek to discipline us? So I think it will pose a lot of gamesmanship for internal dynamics within the ANC, but for those who may feel inclined whether to be absent or to abstain or to vote against the mandate of the NEC come Tuesday next week.
So obviously we don't know exactly what's going to be in the report. You've explained the trajectory suggests they may apportion blame and say the president is now bringing the organisation into disrepute. Talk to me about the people who are part of that Integrity Commission. Are they beyond reproach themselves, or could they be swayed by the mood in the party to support the president?
They are politicians, that's what we know, right? But they are seasoned politicians and veterans of the ANC, led by, of course, George Mashamba. When you look at it that way, you've got to then ask, what is the weight of responsibility that they have? Suddenly the president, not the Secretary General, not, an NEC member, the president is before them, who's also their president. But the burden, the weight of their task is that they must safeguard the integrity of the ANC. They must speak truth to power where there is a need to do so, and then the NEC or the implicated individual must decide what they need to do. If the individual appeals, of course, it may be difficult for the NEC to do anything. But a spanner in the works of things are the rules that were, created by the Electoral Commission.
You mean like step
for
aside?
This conference. That,
No?
If it is said you must step aside, how do you then become available for election at the conference?
I mean, that's next Friday's problem. I mean, it's moving so quickly. And you and I were having a chuckle in the newsroom because you interviewed Bantu Olemisa from the UDM among your guests for Sunday's show at 12. And I was saying, well, are you sure it's still going to be fresh for Sunday?
Let me tell you the truth, Sally. We've got 3 days to go to Sunday. We could have a completely different show. The pre-recording may need me to come back and be live in studio and not do the things that I thought I was going to do over the weekend. That's how fast these moving pieces are. But yet again, we might be plunged into another weekend of uncertainty about the future of the president. The NEC has not had to hurriedly in this fashion, in the build-up to its conference, be so distracted from conference preparation to rescue its president, who is also seeking a second term.
I mean, we used to a fair amount of drama with the ANC, but I'm wondering if this is perhaps unprecedented at this point. Thank you so much for chatting to me this evening. I really appreciate it. A political analyst and host of On the Spot here on ENCA, Lukhona Mnguni. You can catch his show midday every Sunday. Now.